Hi, I'm Rich Powers from the PC Help Desk. We're not your typical help desk. We don't help you with your computers, networks, and printers. We focus on you, the user, helping you to get your work done faster using your Microsoft products. This video is going to showcase some of the ways that we can help you by getting technology to do more of your work. In this demo, we're going to be working with a bunch of text files containing monthly sales figures that could have been exported from SAP or Salesforce or some other legacy system. I'm going to demonstrate an automated workflow that will extract the data from those files and load that data into a cloud-based data store called DataVerse. I'll then show you various ways that we can consume that data for reporting, analysis, and maintenance. So let's get started. The first things we're going to look at are a couple of Excel files that we have to demonstrate the way things might be done today. So we have a company that has 4 regions: North, South, East, and West. And each month, somebody from those regions sends an email with a CSV file attached. This is what that file might look like. It's got a couple of blocks of data. I have some real data here, and then I have data up here in the header. So I can't just copy and paste that data into the report that my management wants to use in their monthly meetings, right? It doesn't fit. It's not the same shape. So somehow I have to get the data from here into here without making any mistakes. It's a very labor intensive process, and the result is, it's okay, right? I have company data here, but I don't capture that any place here. So although my data feed has that information, I'm not capturing it. It's just staying in the text files. And the output here, while it does break it down by the individual regions, and of course I do have a summary at the end, it's not exactly great, right? It's not a great looking report, but that's what they wanted, that's what they get. There's another problem with this, and that is this file contains only the data for 2023. If I want to see the numbers for any other year, I have to go to another file. It would be so much better to store all of the data for all of the regions for all of the years in a single place. That would be a real database. And that's what we're going to be working on today. We're going to show you how we can use the Microsoft Power Platform to automate a process that will actually take all of those attachments that come via email, and it will extract the data, it will transform the data to look like a real database table, and then it's going to store it in a cloud-based database for us where we can access it in a variety of ways. So let's take a look at what this process is actually going to entail. So the first thing we're going to do is we still have to email the CSV files. And to do that, I've set up a couple of emails already that contain data for Q1 and Q2 of 2023 and 2024. So all total, there'll be 48 files. And I'm just going to go ahead and send those now because it could take a few minutes for this stuff to process. So while I'm explaining the rest of the demo, we can let that stuff happen in the background. So the first thing to notice though is I'm sending this to datademos@thepchelpdesk.com. I'm not sending it to my own email address. I'm not sending it to a person. I'm sending it to a group or a team email address. And that recipient is programmed with some triggers. So when the email arrives, all of these attachments will be extracted and saved to a folder automatically. And I'll show you what that process looks like. So let me get these going. I'm going to send that one, and I'm going to send that one. So the way this is going to work is an email is sent to a SharePoint group rather than an individual. Each of those emails has an attachment, a CSV file. In our case, multiples, just so we can kind of speed things up. What will happen is when the attachments are saved to a particular folder out in SharePoint, it will trigger a workflow, and it's going to process each of those into this folder. And then once they are saved in the folder, another process is going to kick off to do the ETL process, which is extract, transform, and load. So it's going to take the data from the text files and it's going to load it up into this database called DataVerse. After that's done, it's going to take all the files that were saved to this folder and it's going to move them to an archive folder. Now, I have something here that's actually a live view of that first folder. So you can see it's actually pulling those files in live. So this first part has actually happened. And the next thing I want to show is that we have a database that I set up, and the database is looking at that DataVerse table among other tables. And we're going to look to see if there's any data in there. Now, this whole process could take 5 minutes, could take up to 10 minutes. We have no control over the speed that this stuff happens with. Let me refresh that table. So right now, the DataVerse table has no data in it. This happens to be a database that's linked to an Access database and a SQL database that's out in the cloud, as well as this DataVerse table. But really what we're focused on here is all of the files were now extracted from the emails. They're sitting in Sales Files New, and at this time, this ETL process is happening. It's moving data from the text files, transforming it, and storing it into the DataVerse table. And then when it's done with that, it will then move the files from here into this folder called Processed. Now, I can see that nothing has been processed yet. And again, we don't know how long this is going to take. But let's just see, once we start seeing some files appear here, then I'm sure we're going to see them appear in this table as well. So I'm just going to pause for a second, let that happen, and we'll be right back. And it looks like we have some activity again. So you can see that some of the files are now starting to show up under processed. So they're fulfilling this part of the automation. And that means that we should have some data here as well. So let's take a look. I'll refresh the table. And sure enough, we have data. Not sure if it's all there. Let's see. It looks like I've got all the data there. So we now have data that's been processed completely hands-off. And I can now use that data in a variety of ways. Note that I'm using Microsoft Access here to link to that data. So anything I could have done with a regular Microsoft Access database, I can also do here. I can filter this data, I can report on it, I can join it with other tables that I have that might not be in DataVerse, they might be in SQL, they might be in Access. I could process more text files here. I could do anything I want with this data. I could build forms that would allow me to edit this. So the fact is, this is just one way in which we can access that data. There are absolutely other ways that we can use. And you can see that eventually all of those files are going to be migrated in here. Even as I speak, we're seeing more and more of these things being transferred. So we'll see eventually this file folder is going to be empty and this file folder will be full. In the meantime, let's go and look at some other ways that we might leverage that data. So if you recall, one of the files that we looked at earlier was the report that my manager wanted to use at the end of the month in his PowerPoint slide deck. So he may take screenshots of these things and paste them every month into a PowerPoint slide. Not very exciting. With the data stored in DataVerse and taking advantage of Power BI, we can do something like this. So this is actually a live connected report set that's based on the Power BI portal, and we're looking at live data here. So I can come in and actually interact with this within the slide I didn't have to do screenshots. I can work with this. I can filter this for looking only at 2024 data or 2023 data, or I can look at both years together. I can filter by region, and it's all live, so I can ask questions of the information live without having to go in and worry about screenshots. Also, these pictures are an awful lot nicer to look at than looking at just a basic spreadsheet. And I can address questions as they come up live, and I know that I'm looking at live data. So that's one of the ways that we can look at this. The other is we have, through the Power BI portal, we can actually look at those same reports here. So I've got the exact same thing published in the Power BI portal in a particular workspace. So I can invite people to look at this and to interact with it without fear of them messing with the data. The data does not exist here. These are just charts and graphs that I built based on the data that's stored in that DataVerse table that we built. And I have the same capabilities here, and I can integrate this with other things as well, such as Teams. So I have the same reports available in my Teams channel. So I can come in here and work with it here as well. The caveat is anybody who has to access this stuff has to have an appropriate license for the service, right? Once we get into the Power Platform, things get a little tricky with the licensing. But if you have a need for this, the licenses aren't really all that bad, and it gives you an awful lot of power to distribute your information in a variety of ways. So we've seen this in Teams, we've seen it in the Power BI portal. We can also look at it in a web page. So this is a SharePoint website. This is the data demos group that I set up that actually received that email and did all the processing using Power Automate. And I can come here, I can refresh these, and whether it's in a SharePoint site or embedded in your actual company website, same thing applies. You can have access to the visuals and you can interact with them knowing that it's live data. So imagine no more copying and pasting screenshots of really dull, numeric data like this, but instead in your slide presentations having dynamic visualizations to get your story across. And then having that same information available in Teams or through a portal if you don't have the need to post it on your website. So another way that we can access this is through Power Apps. And Power Apps is another tool that we use for low code, no code development of applications. In this example, I'm going to show you that we have the same app represented a couple of different ways. So in the right-hand window that I'm showing you here, I'm running an emulator that emulates some sort of an iPhone 12 Max or something like that. And if I refresh the data, I'm going to see the exact same information that I would in this app that would be run just in a regular browser. So I can run it on my phone or a tablet. I can run it in the browser, or I could also run it in a team window. If I go here, I've actually loaded this here as well. So let's just take a look at something here. I'm going to edit this thing, right? So PNT 003 Vulith, I'm going to go in and edit this to not be 20, but instead to be 22, and I'm going to save that. And if I move this aside and I come over here and I refresh this data, I see the change made here. And if I come over here and refresh on my phone, I see 22 here. If I open this and I edit it on the phone and I make this 202 and save it, and I refresh the data in my browser version of it, I'm going to see the same thing. So there's my 202. And if I go to my Access database, which is just another way to get to that data, I could come over here and let's filter this down so we can find it easily. And I will refresh that table, and there's my 202 there as well. And then I could also edit it here. How about 2002? So now I've accessed it through Microsoft Access. And if I refresh this, I'm going to see 2002. And if I refresh this, I will also see 2002. So we've now tackled the maintenance of it, the distribution of it, and this is all very secure with permission-based information. And then I can also use it in a regular Excel file. I can access that. So here I have a sheet tab in a regular regular Excel file, excuse me, that's looking at that same data. And if I come in here and I refresh this, it will go out, it will read the data in the table, and then it will present that information for us. So I should see, instead of just 2024, I see 2023 and 2024. So whatever data is in the table will be represented here. So I can now do my filtering. I can look at any combination of these things that I want. So the beauty of this is I don't need a license to use this kind of a report. I can just publish this report as an Excel template, say, and give that to whomever I want in my organization. They can access that data and look at the visuals without actually having access to the information, right? They can't go in and edit, they can't delete, they can't destroy the data. There's no more question about, hey, am I looking at the right information? We can make it so that when this template opens up, it refreshes automatically. So it's guaranteed to be looking at the latest and greatest information. So in this demo, we've seen that we can process a whole bunch of raw data files, which is arguably the lowest form of data you're going to get. We can transpose that data or transform that data into an actual database table, and we can move that data to the cloud where it can be accessed using your desktop software like Access or Excel, or we can also access it through the cloud using the Power BI portal, using SharePoint, or posting the data on your website. And we can also go in and look at it and maintain it, edit it using Power Apps in a browser, on your phone or a tablet. And you're in complete control of the data and just giving people access to the visualizations so they can help themselves answer their own questions and then also use it for presentation purposes. I hope you've enjoyed the demo, and if you'd like to see more of these, please let us know, leave some comments, and we'll continue to build. Thanks very much for watching.